Stephanie Murray, a friend of the show she's with Politico.com. Good morning, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm great. Good to talk to you.
We had to get Montigny off so we could get you on, but that's all right. So Stephanie, very interesting night here locally with the fact that the Republicans lost two what had really been considered safe seats in the Massachusetts State Senate. It really putting the Republicans down to almost just 4 votes.
Yeah, this is a pretty significant blow for the Mass GOP, who really maintained that they were going to win these 2 seats, but they actually lost control of 2 seats in the state Senate that have been controlled by Republicans for years. And now there are only 4 Republican members of the entire state Senate. There are 40 members in the chamber, and only 4 of them now are Republican.
No, it is significant, and of course, one of the seats is pretty close here. Plymouth and Barnstable County, right next door to us here, and of course the other one's out in Western Mass, basically New York, right? But I know it's early, and do you have a sense? Was it anti-Trump? Was it anti-Baker? Were the Democrats just better candidates? Do you have a sense yet? And I know it's early.
That's a great question, and I would say I think that President Donald Trump has made voters more cool on voting for Republicans. Things are just so polarized now, and I think they're more polarized than they were perhaps when former Senator Vinnie DiMacedo and former Senator Don Thomason, the 2 Republicans who were in office before, when they ran, it was a little bit different. But I think in Western Mass, it really came down to name ID. John Velas, the Democrat who won, is a state senator right now, and he has a lot of goodwill and a lot of name recognition in that district. And he went up on TV. He went up and did a few ads on television in March before the election was rescheduled, and did it again a few days ago. So he had the budget to kind of really get out there, get his name out there, and I think that was a part of the reason he did so well.
Yeah, the other thing, and of course we'll have to wait till we see what the specifics of the turnout was, but I wonder if older people who would generally vote a more conservative line also stayed home. I just wonder, with the idea of not going to the polls. But again, it'll be a while before we really get a chance to see that. The other thing too is you wonder if there are people within the Republican Party base who are really kind of upset with Charlie Baker, and I wonder if that may have had an impact.
Yeah, it's interesting. And on older voters staying home, in the race to replace Vinnie DiMacedo, the Plymouth senator, Falmouth had a really high voter turnout and vote by mail. I think a little over 6,000 people had returned their ballots by mail as of Monday, so a few days ago. And one reason for that is because the town had an override. And, you may not know who your state senator or your state representative is, but if people are trying to raise your taxes, you're absolutely going to get out and vote any way you can. And this was something that was kind of being looked at as a test case as the state figures out whether it wants to do some form of expanded mail-in voting for the primary in September and the general election in November. So Falmouth was an interesting test case for that, and that was the town, I think, that gave Sue Moran, the Democrat who won, gave her biggest victory. Yeah,
I think you're right about that. We're speaking with Stephanie Murray from Politico.com. She does the Massachusetts Playbook, covers Massachusetts politics. We will so we'll stay tuned to see what happens there. Of course, it was just a special election. They're going to have to run again in November, right?
That's right. So this was a kind of an interesting and long campaign, longer than they thought because it got postponed from March to May. But that's right. They'll be up again in November. So it's not clear to me who, if anybody's going to be up for a rematch, but they absolutely could be.
So, Stephanie, yesterday we had an opportunity, Congressman Joe Kennedy joined me here on the program. It was the first time I'd interviewed him here on this program, so I thought it was a nice conversation. How is that race going for the United States Senate?
It's been kind of scrambled like everything else because of the coronavirus, but they've been super active online instead of doing the kind of getting out in the field, knocking on doors, doing all those sorts of things, having rallies. They're doing a lot of phone banking and doing events online, but they are going to meet finally. Joe Kennedy and Ed Markey will finally meet on the debate stage at the beginning of June. They haven't debated since February, so I expect that to be kind of one of the big turning points of the race. They'll finally be facing off in what's taken months to see them together again.
It's gotten a little chippy between them so far. I know Ed Markey's put out some attack ads Congressman Kennedy's, not backing down, and he's made some pretty. Pretty heavy-handed charges against him, as far as being basically non-available and shouldn't have people been in office 50 years making decisions for the future. Do you expect it's going to get much more interesting before it gets nice?
Oh, absolutely. And, part of the reason why it hasn't, it has now, but it's difficult to figure out kind of where those contours will form because they agree on so many issues. They would probably vote mostly the same way, whoever gets elected in the fall. But at the end of the day, this is it's Joe Kennedy's reputation on the line, and it's Ed Markey's job on the line, and neither of them wants to lose. This is really a do-or-die race, so things are going to get serious, and there's a lot of money involved. They're just raising tons of money. Outside groups might even put in some cash. I don't know if the coronavirus will change that, but you can expect this to be all over your TVs heading into the summer, and it's going to be a dramatic race.
No doubt about it. And of course, the other race that's really normally would be the most interesting thing in politics right now is the open seat, because they're so rare. Congressman Kennedy's going to give up his seat for representing Fall River all the way up to Newton. That race is starting to take shape now. As you've mentioned, some people got thrown a lifeline because when they cut the signatures down. Have you started to see anybody pulling out to the front yet on that?
I think the two biggest fundraisers you see in that race so far are Jake Auchincloss and Alan Casey. Jake is a Newton City Councilor. Alan Casey was the co-founder of City Year, and both of them have raised over $1 million. But the big caveat that I would put on that is, in the last few cycles, the candidate who raises the most money often does not go on to win. So that kind of traditional marker that we look at to see candidate strength doesn't always matter. But on the other hand, I was talking to Peter Ubertasio, who's a professor at Stonehill College, and he was saying that maybe TV might matter more than it used to because people are stuck in their houses. You can't go out and knock on doors, kind of the things that campaigns like to do. And TV will be expensive because of this Kennedy-Markey race and because of the presidential election. So maybe financial strength will show us candidate strength this time around. That's kind of something that I'm looking at.
And then the other thing is the Republican Connor, I think his name is, he made it on the ballot for the U.S. Senate. So there will be a Republican U.S. Senate candidate in the fall.
Yes, there will, and he was pretty outspoken about changing the signature requirements. But I think he ended up getting over the 2,000 signatures that he would have needed to get on the ballot either way. They cut those in half.
Yeah, it's been quite a change. Just before we let you go, the vote by mail thing, has that gotten any movement? Do you think that that's going to be a reality, the way some people want it to be for the November election or the September primary?
That's the big question right now. And there was a hearing on Beacon Hill last week to figure out what vote by mail might look like. It's something that the legislature would have to do and pass. And there are tons of proposals out there. And it seems like nobody can really agree on what the right move would be. Some folks want to mail everybody a ballot, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, maybe mail independents both ballots. Others say that independents should have to request those ballots. Others say everybody should have to request ballots. So it's pretty confusing right now. It's not clear to me what the winning proposal might be, but it seems like they're probably going to have to do something, especially if the coronavirus starts to come back in the fall, and it might not be safe for older people, especially to go vote in person. We're
speaking with Stephanie Murray from Politico. She does the Massachusetts Playbook. Stephanie, if people want to get more information about you, follow you, get your news stories, how do they follow you? Where can they find you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Stephanie_MURR, or you can just Google Politico Massachusetts Playbook, and it comes right up.
And you also do a podcast?
Yes, I do. I'm the host of the Horse Race podcast, something I do with Mass Inc., and we're actually going live this afternoon on Facebook, so you can check that out too.
Oh, cool. Anything else my listeners should know about it?
I think you got it all, but thank you so much for having me. It's always great to talk to you.
All right. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks so much for making time for us. I appreciate it. Have fun. Be safe.